More than 130 leaders are flocking to New York to deliver a series of speeches at the 79th UN General Assembly. And this year, discussions are looking to be heavier than ever, with the world facing unprecedented geopolitical risks. We're joined by Voice of America correspondent Chris Casquejo. Good to have you back, Chris.
Good to be with you.
So what is this year's edition all about? Let's start with that.
Well, this year's theme is Leaving No One Behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for present and future generations. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric gave this update earlier today. There are 194 speakers, including 76 heads of state and 42 heads of government, but only 19 women, she added sadly. But flashpoints across the globe are already dominating the discussion among world leaders, namely that widening conflict in the Middle East and Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told the gathering, "We can't go on like this," and he went on to condemn the nations which have invaded other nations without regard for the welfare of the civilians. He singled out the wars in Ukraine, Gaza, and the conflict along the Israel-Lebanon border. Now, diplomats will also discuss the war in Sudan. Despite multiple international initiatives, there has been no ceasefire there amid 17 months of fighting that has displaced more than 10 million people and pushed millions of them into hunger.
Well, like you said, world leaders are delivering their speeches this week. What did U.S. President Joe Biden have to say at what is his very last appearance as president at the event?
Yeah, that's correct. This is President Biden's final address, and he said the world is at an inflection point in history. He warned against the full-scale war in Lebanon and said it's time to end the conflict in Gaza. He said, quote, "A full-scale war is not in anyone's interest," while adding that a diplomatic solution is still possible. On Gaza, he urged the parties to finalize the terms of a ceasefire and hostage release that has been endorsed by the UN Security Council. But for a little background, top officials told the White House that any kind of deal would not happen before Biden's term ends in January.
You know, on top of that, the Ukraine war is topping the agenda as well. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy is once again calling on world leaders for utmost support for his country, isn't he?
Yes. And after thanking Ukraine's allies for their support in his speech to the UN Security Council today, Zelenskyy appealed to countries in the global south, calling on Brazil, India, and countries across Africa and Latin America to increase pressure on Russia to halt the war, saying that all countries are equally important for peace without exceptions. Now, VOA's Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb is reporting that Washington is set to provide Ukraine with $375 million in new military aid, and we could see that announcement as soon as tomorrow here. That would be the largest U.S. contribution to the war effort in Ukraine since May. One official tells VOA that the package could include air-to-ground munitions for F-16 fighter jets. Now, this is important because it would let Ukraine's pilots operate away from the front lines and Russian air defenses. Zelenskyy is also scheduled to meet this week on Thursday with U.S. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris at the White House. Officials say Ukraine's president will lay out his peace plan and call on Washington to lift its restriction on long-range missiles. Right now, U.S. policy does not allow Ukraine to use long-range weapons deep into Russia because of fear of escalating Russia, and Russian leader Vladimir Putin has already said that he would take such a move as an escalation.
Right. And North Korea yet again decided not to dispatch its official representative to this year's event. That's for the 6th straight year. Now, who's attending and what is he expected to argue for the regime?
Well, so far, North Korean Foreign Minister Cho Son-hui has noticeably been absent from the UN General Assembly, despite some analysts and observers saying that she would attend for the first time in 6 years and the first foreign minister to attend the UN General Assembly and speak to it since Ri Yong-ho 6 years ago. Cho had just wrapped up a visit to Russia seeking BRICS membership, suggesting that Pyongyang wants to ally itself with the global south, but analysts say membership in that bloc of nations is really unlikely. Now, North Korea is next on the list of scheduled speakers. They're scheduled to speak next Monday, which is September 30th, And North Korean ambassador to the UN, Kim Song, will likely deliver the speech in Cho's absence amid the heightened tensions on the Korean Peninsula and the stalled nuclear diplomacy between Pyongyang and Washington. Now, this speech will also take place in the middle of the U.S. election, suggesting that North Korea wants to send a message to its adversary, the U.S.
Definitely. Alrighty, Chris, thank you so much for the report today. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Good to be with you.